Good morning, everyone. Just checking how all my setup's working here. It's a big rainy morning for Melbourne today. It's actually been raining all night, so I'm really happy about that. Very unusual for us to get so much rain, but it's still raining now. It's going to be raining all day. So just popping in the chat, say hi if you're here. Let me just check on the chat over here. I've changed my monitor setup. I've actually put I've got two monitors that I've got in my studio, and I used to have one more on the left-hand side, but now I've pushed one over to the other side, so I'm going to be looking a bit differently than usual. So bear with me a little bit. Let me turn on some other lighting too. Hang on a sec. That's a bit better, a bit brighter. So how are we all on this lovely rainy Melbourne day? Let's check who's in on the chat. We're in pre-show at the moment, guys, so I'm going to give it a few minutes just to let everyone know that we're here live. So let me check that. So let's have a look who's here. So Andrew's here. He's saying, forget it, I'm waiting for the A7R4. Jamie's here as well. Sam is saying, hello all. Peter's saying, rumour has it that the A7000 will be a medium format and come with a pie warmer and a Z1000 battery out of a motorbike. I love it. Sammy said, you forgot about the 6 card slots. Matthew says he won't be able to watch because he's on a flight to Norfolk Island. That'll be lovely, but going to be watching it later. Ben has said, good morning for ducks. It certainly is. It's shocking at the moment. Let me just make sure that that's switched off. What else have we got? Peter's just saying perfect in Eden. Carl says good evening from New York City. Gerald, g'day Gerald. Saying g'day everyone. Scissorman said good evening everyone. Sammy Photography said hello all that joined. Don Chillen said if the A7S III doesn't impress me, I'm moving over to Nikon with their Atmos Ninja and ProRes 12-bit RAW. Look, I'm sure the A7S III is going to impress you, Don. I've got probably no doubt about it. Sony, we're going to talk about that. It's one of the first stories anyway. Sammy said, I just bought the Z6 this week. Oh, it's a nice camera, Sammy. Don Chilling said, I'm thinking about it at this minute as well. Where are we? It's on sale right now. Yeah, Nikon are in a little bit of financial strife, and I'll talk about that as one of the stories today, actually. Barry said, good morning, David. Good morning, Barry. Jamie says, have you changed the setup at all? Looking much sharper today. Well, I have. I've changed the way this sort of all works. So I'm not sure whether, too, there's more light hitting me from these monitors that are dual monitors. So, yeah, I have changed it a little bit. Sammy's just saying hi. George said, hey, David. Jack says, hi, David. I like your background lights. Oh, thanks for that. I'm doing a test today, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute when I look at this 135. Rick says, hey, Dave. It's also rainy here in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, we've had rain all night, which is very, very rare for us. So I hope this rains all day today. Don Chillen says, I have the Nikon combo and still prefer the Sony. The autofocus has been spotty for me, but I'm excited for the update. Gerald said Sony would never come out with a product less than Nikon ever. Rainy day in New Orleans as well. Jeff says, just gave you a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you. If you can give me a thumbs up, it just lets people know that we're live. What else have we got? Jim says, g'day, Jim. All greetings from Minnesota, USA, where 10 inches of snow fell last night. Wow, that's late for snow, isn't it? Really late. I mean, you're nearly almost into summer. And Thomas says, g'day, mate. Chris says, hello, David from Los Angeles. A good Corona day. I've got my Sony coffee. It's real coffee. It's not the fake coffee. It's too cold now in Melbourne. Too early. I probably won't be having the other coffee with you guys until it starts to warm up again. And the daylight savings time difference now has made it early because it's only 10 o'clock in the morning here. Rui says, rainy day in Alabama as well. Seven says, hello from Germany. Efren says, hello from Utah. Carl says he's using Fuji today. You wish, Carl. PJ Smith said, hello from Los Angeles. Sammy said, I am wondering, is the rent cheap in Australia? Wife about to kill me after all the purchases this past 2 weeks. Sony A9 MC11, Sigma 150 to 600. I must try and get that. I'd love to get the Sigma 150 to 600 and try it with the MC11 adapter. Let me know, have you tried it yet, Sammy? Because I'd like to get that from CR Kennedy and see if I can review it for you guys. Chris is saying, hello, David. Hero saying, greetings, it's all coffee time. PJ Smith, you use two systems. Oh, yeah, he's using two. G'day, Michael. Good to see you in here. Francisco says, greetings from Mexico, 50 degrees Celsius, believe it or not. Yeah, well, I would. We had that, well, not 50, but close to it a few times. Jim said, hope your wife lets you live long enough to rent. Hello, David from Oakland. Hi. Mikkel says, still waiting for the brick wall fabric test of my lenses. I love it. And that's about it. So that's sort of just going through the chat today. So what we're going to do, we'll start the show in a second. If you can, guys, love it if you could give me a thumbs up just so people know we're live. I might mention that a couple of times. But we may just start the show. And I do want to give also a bit of a plug again to CR Kennedy, who are lending me this lens, actually, I'm going to talk about in a minute. So let me switch over to the Osler Images logo and we'll start the show. G'day everyone, I was just putting in the time we started the show and it was taking me longer. For some reason I couldn't get my mouse to show up on this dual screen. How are we all today? Really wet and rainy day here in Melbourne today, but we need the rain. I mean, we're basically in drought conditions, so it's great and I hope it rains all day. We just have had pre-show. I will put down on the timeline everything that we're doing. Just let me fix that timeline up. So I will have all the timelines down on there for you all. So if you don't want to basically watch the show, because these do end up going for a reasonable amount of time, you can skip to the story that interests you. We've got a number of stories we're going to go through today. We're going to look at obviously all the latest Sony rumours and things like that, and lens rumours and stuff. We're then going to look at also some firmware updates for some lenses. We've got DXO sensor testing we're going to have a discussion on. Going to talk about a Canon, the 85mm, and also about Nikon financial results. So we've got plenty to talk about today. So it should be a pretty cool show. But I thought I'd start talking about the Sigma lens. I'm going to review later today. I'm going to start reviewing the Sigma 135 1.8. I'll unbox it with you because I've got it here. So we'll unbox it in a minute. Have a look at that. Have a look at how it compares in size to the Sony lens that I've got sitting right here. So we'll have a look at how it compares to that one in a minute. And I'll talk about what I'm going to do later today to start testing these two lenses, because I've got the Sigma 135 for 2 weeks. But just let me switch over, because I do want to thank CR Kennedy. I mean, look, CR Kennedy are not sponsoring me in any way, but they're a great local company, and I'll just show this as I'm talking, but yeah, they're a great local company who are giving me the opportunity to lend these lenses. CR Kennedy sell basically everything, like high-end cameras, drones, tripods, which I reviewed the other day. So I actually did a review of a new Vanguard tripod that came out the other day, that's on pre-order now. And they're all over Australia and also into New Zealand. So, you know, I just thought that I'd share this with you all. Like I said, they're not sponsoring me, and in fact, they've said to me, give honest reviews with everything, which is great, and that's fantastic. So they're certainly not paying me to do the reviews, but they are giving me the opportunity to review stuff for you guys, and I'm so happy that a local company has given me that opportunity. So if you have got the time and you need something, please use CR Kennedy, and I've put the link down below. Sammy also said down payment. I'll just show this because Sammy said, thank you so much, Sammy Photography, $5 US down payment on my new apartment in Australia. He might be coming to stay with me. Thank you so much for that, Sammy. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so it's been great to have an opportunity like what C.R. Kennedy have given me, because at least finally I'm able to give you stuff that I can review. And that's great. Like, I've now got this lens for a couple of weeks that I'll unbox with you, and I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do later today with the Lenny in the thing as well. So let's unbox it, because I thought we could have a look at it together and then compare it. Now, this is the Canon one. They didn't have the Sony one, unfortunately. But they did have, and they said, would you be willing to have the Canon one? Now, luckily, I've got the MC11 adapter, which is fantastic. Look at that, bokeh. So I've got that I can use. And it's going to be interesting because I've been dying to try a Canon lens to see how well it works on my Sony gear. So that's one thing, in a way, I'm sort of glad. Now, I know this is not going to focus as well as what the Sony is going to, because naturally this is a native lens, and I think this is going to focus better than probably any lens out there, and my testing seems to show that. But I'm going to see what it's like as with the adapter to see how well it works. So I'm really excited about doing that. But let me open this up and we'll have a look. It's just all your normal paperwork and stuff like that. Strap, obviously, for the case. The cases are pretty nice. They're similar to the way the Sony lens came. Let me just put these down and out of the way. So that's the case that it comes in. So it does look like it's nicely done. The same as the Sony case was really good as well. Let me open this up. Nothing in there. Nope. So that's the lens itself. So we'll take it out and have a look. Looks nice, actually. I'll just take this lens hood off. So, this is the lens, and I'll compare it to the Sony one in a minute. So it looks like on here there's also, and I'll talk about the differences in a minute. You can see here, let me just get this to focus. It always uses face detect. You can see there that there is a focus delimiter there, and you've also got your manual and automatic focus switch as well on the lens. So you have got those two features. It does have the A symbol, which means this is an art series lens, unlike the 16 that I've got, which is a C symbol, which is a contemporary lens. So, you know, this is quite interesting as well. Pretty heavy. I mean, it is nice and heavy, but it's probably, look, I think it's a fraction heavier than what the Sony lens is. I haven't even looked at the specs yet, but let me take the lens hood off. Let's have a look at it without the lens hood. So if we look at the two of them side by side, Sony's on this side, obviously. The Sigma one, if you're dealing with the lens itself, is a fraction smaller, I think. Just a fraction. But you've obviously got to put the MC11 adapter on here, which will make it look bigger. So width, I think the Sigma is slightly wider than what the Sony one is, just slightly. And I can feel that it's a little bit heavier. I can feel it in this hand, that it is slightly, yeah, it is heavier. So it does feel a little bit heavier. You can see the ribbing on the outside there. It is quite a bit different than what the Sony is. I'm just seeing how smoothly the focus tends to move. It's pretty nice. Yeah, they're both fairly nice. The big difference, I suppose, between these two is that the Sony has your two buttons that you can program for IAF or something like that, which is what I've done on that side. And also, you've got the aperture ring on this as well, so you can control the aperture from the lens, which is a very nice feature if you're dealing with using video. I can't wait to test these both side by side. But the interesting thing is that the sizes surprised me. I thought it would have been a little bit bigger than what it was here. But like I said, you've got to add on, you have to add on the MC11 due to, you know, for the gap for the Sony cameras. But this is an interesting thing, because I think once Sigma start to develop, and they've also said that they're going to start developing true native lenses for Sony that are redesigned for Sony, it may be that they get a lot smaller, but beautifully designed. I mean, it does feel really beautiful, just like the Sony does as well. I mean, they're both amazing lenses. The one thing you can say about Sigma is that they do make gorgeous lenses, and they feel very sort of like industrial and like they last forever. I mean, they really are good quality, built like tanks, really. So I'm excited about using it. I'm going to test this today. They both feel really, really nice. I mean, you know, if you were looking at them from quality alone of how they're built, I'd say that they look very, very similar and feel very similar in quality. So I'll let you know when I do some testing. So today, what I'm going to do later on today, I've got Eleni coming over, and she's going to... I'm going to do a couple of things today. I'm going to do a bokeh test, because I've got some lights set up in my studio behind me. Not these lights that you're looking at here, but actually in my studio. So I'm going to do a head and shoulder test, and I've got some fairy lights that I've set up there, and I'm going to do some bokeh tests to see how they both work. It'll be interesting too, because it's going to be fairly low light, because I'm going to do this with continuous light, and I'm going to... I forgot to put the time on this. Oh, I'm hopeless, honestly. So I'm going to use continuous light, and I've set up my Profoto B10 and also a Neo Rotor light, and I'm going to light Eleni up with that, and obviously then have the lights out of focus in the background to see what it's like. So that'll be an interesting test to see how both of these lenses go, and it'll also be an interesting test to see how they both focus under these lower light conditions. So that's going to be interesting. Then if the weather clears up, well, before that, I might also then do a high-key studio shoot with both of these lenses, just to see how they perform in a studio scenario. With sort of, you know, normal studio lighting, see how sharp they both are. I'll probably do close-up so I can check, you know, how sharp the eye is and things like that. So they're tests that I'll be able to run. Then we're going to go out if the weather holds off, and we'll do some shooting sort of late today when the sun's starting to go down, just to have a look at how the background renders in real-life scenarios. So stay tuned for that. So I can't wait. I'm really excited about trying it, and I'm particularly excited about trying a Canon lens on the Sony mount to see how it performs. I expect that the focus is definitely going to be slower, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, both beautiful lenses. They look like they're both amazing. Here in Australia, though, the big difference is that the Sigma is $1,000 difference. So that is a lot of money. I mean, if you're dealing to buy this, and you can get by, and like I said, I'll let you know how the focusing works, but if you can get by with using the Sigma lens, you're saving $1,000, which you're well on the way, you know, to getting a better body, or having another lens, you know, another really good lens in that price range. So, you know, you could almost buy, well, you could really, you could probably buy the Sigma version of that lens and have the Tamron 28-75, for instance, for the same price that you're paying for the Sony. I'm talking about here in Australia, so it's an interesting thing. So I'll let you know. I've got a feeling that the quality will be pretty close between the two of them from what I've seen online. But I think the main difference will be that the Sony will be quicker focusing, definitely. But the Sony also has the advantage of having the aperture ring and those buttons which you can program for IAF. I think the rendering is going to be pretty close, but we'll wait and see how the results look. And like I said, I'll just tell you the truth, how it comes out. So it'll be an interesting discussion. So let me know too in the comment box down below if there's anything you'd like me to test. It might give me some ideas that I can test in the 2 weeks that I've got this lens. The end of that 2 weeks, I'm picking up something pretty exciting from CR Kennedy that I can't talk about yet, but stay tuned for that, because it is really exciting for me particularly. So stay tuned for that. Apart from that, let's get started with some of the stories. Yeah, so before I get on the first story, like I said, anything you want me to test, put down below, and I'll note it down and see if I can test it in the coming days for you all. So that's 1947. So let me put down this first story. What is it? I'll say 20 by the time I switch over. All right, so let's go to the first story today. which is all of this rumour recap and stuff like that. So this is on Sony Alpha Rumours, and we've got that it's a recap of the Sony A9 II, Sony a7S III, the a6500 successor, and new lenses. And I'm going to go through these and we can have a talk about that. And keep firing away with the chat, guys. I'll pop back in a minute and have a look at what people are saying. So let's look at fact of what Sony Alpha Rumours believe are facts at this stage. They're saying Sony confirms a professional APS-C cameras are on the roadmap and said an enthusiast model is on the way. Now, there's articles there that you can open up, and I'll put a link to these articles down below so you can have a look at that. So that's that. They are saying that they haven't forgotten APS-C and that there's this enthusiast model which is coming as well. Now, they're saying here too, fact also is that Sony confirms a new APS-C E-mount camera or gear will be announced in 2019 and exceed expectations. And there's another article here. Now, looking at that, I still believe that the a7000 or that camera is going to be the next release camera. And they've said there that it's a fact that something's going to be announced this year sometime. Whether it's an a7000, whether it's an a6700 or an a6900, I don't know. But I still believe they have to answer the Fuji X-T3. So we're still waiting on that camera to replace or to say answer to that camera. Because at the moment, yes, they're very similar in stills, but the X-T3 is definitely better if you're dealing with video side of things. I mean, you know, you've got much better bit depths, things like that. So that still has to be answered. So I'm still thinking there's a possibility that this will be announced, say, mid-year, and then it might be a little bit of time to wait to actually get it. But I still think that's going to come out first. So that's what's going to happen. And I'm not sure the specs, what that camera is going to have. It may be that, well, I'm certainly hoping that it has 4K 60p for starters. And we're not sure yet what size sensor it's going to have. I mean, there was an article, it was a SR1 on Sony Alpha Rumours saying that it was going to have some incredibly high megapixels. I'd be surprised if that's the case. But I'm hoping that it has more video features. Now, remember, I suppose Sony also have to make sure that whatever they put in this camera doesn't take away from what the a7S III is going to have. But I do think the a7S III is going to have something really drastic like a global shutter. But we'll talk about that in the next part. So let's go back to this article. So if you look at it, what they're saying here is too. So fact, Sony said the a7S III will have more than what people expect. And that was the interesting thing that I said, that if you're talking about more than what people expect, it has to be something big, because you can't just say 4K 60, you'd just be going, well, yeah, so what? A lot of other cameras now are offering that. I mean, the GH5 has offered that for ages. So it can't be that it's just going to offer 4K 60p or higher bit depths. So this is where I think the global shutter is, my pick is that it possibly could have a global shutter. And I keep hearing things that it's now being pushed back to next year. But we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it's, and if it is a global shutter, it's probably certainly going to be worth the wait due to the fact that you're going to have zero rolling shutter with that sensor. So there's two ways that they could go. They could develop a sensor which is similar to the A9, but a newer version of that. And the A9 definitely has less rolling shutter because of the speed readout of that sensor. So if they do a more modern, a much more advanced version of that, that may also give you very little or almost no rolling shutter as well. So that could be another possibility that, you know, and that would also exceed people's expectations as well. So there's two ways of looking at it, that, you know, they may bring out this amazing new sensor like the A9. I'm still picking that it might be the first global shutter. They may also bring out 8K, and I don't think that's so far-fetched anymore. I mean, you're getting phones now that are bringing out 8K. So it's not that far-fetched. It doesn't mean you have to use it, but it's a possibility that it could be there. And then obviously you could use 4K 60 if you wanted to, or even still 1080. But you've got 8K as like future-proofing your camera if you want to. So there's some interesting things that could happen in that regard. I'm hoping for things like a built-in ND. Electronic ND would be fantastic, like the FS7s have. But we'll have to wait and see on that regard. So let's go back to this article. They're saying fact, Sony said an a6500 successor is on the roadmap, and we discussed that before. Rumour, Sony a9 II to be released in September and have some revolutionary new features, and that's the article here. I'm not convinced that an A9 will be released in September. It may be announced. I've got a feeling that the A9 II won't be released until the start of next year. Now, I know a lot of people are going on saying, yes, but they need to have it in the hands of the photographers for the Olympics. But I can almost guarantee that the photographers that are going to be at the Olympics that are probably going to be using Sony will have that camera well before any of us get that camera. They'll be beta testing that camera way before then. And remember, the Olympics is July, I think. It's June or July, so there's still plenty of time for testing if this camera is released at the start of next year. So I think with the firmware updates of the A9, I'll be surprised if an A9 II is announced this year. We're still waiting on another firmware update, version 6, to come out for the A9 in the US summer. We don't know when that will be, but it's going to happen. And I just don't think we're going to get an A9 II in any hurry. I think potentially may be announced late this year, but I've got a feeling it may come out early next year. And I'll come to the chat. We'll have a talk about this in the chat in a minute. It's saying, rumour, the a7S III is going to be announced this fall and feature a completely new kind of sensor, which we've discussed as well. And also, rumour, Sony 8K sensors, a new codec specification, 90% reliable. Well, we know that's going to happen because that's been discussed before. It's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of time that they're already developing that codec and everything now. Lenses. So they're saying Sony said a 1.2 FE lens is a possibility. And also, Sony have patented 100 1.4, the 500 f4, and the 600 f4. Now, if you're looking at that, there's a couple of things in that article that you think must be fact. For Sony to really have a camera that's capable of performing well at the Olympics, they have to bring out more long glass. So I would think that rumour of a 500mm f4 and a 600mm f4 are going to be announced sometime this year, and they'll definitely be available before the Olympics next year. So that's definitely going to happen, I would say, and probably announced the same time as a new A9 II. So that I would say that's a sure thing that's going to happen. What else was there in that? Oh, f1.2 lens as well. I am hoping, and we're going to look at that when we discuss Canon's lens later on today, but I am really hoping that they do produce something like an 85 1.2 or something like that. It would be a beautiful lens to have on the camera. Sony still have to do that. They haven't produced anything that's that fast yet. We know it can be done because other manufacturers are producing it, but I would love them to bring out an AF version, you know, not a manual version, manual focusing version. All those fast glass at the moment, I think, are manual focusing. So it'd be great if they could bring out an autofocus version. But Sony have said it's possible, so we're just waiting on that. What else are they saying? Third-party lenses. Sigma said first lens designed for Sony full-frame mirrorless will be announced within 2019. So that's another one, and that's why I said to you, it might be really interesting to see what they can do with lenses if they bring lenses out like this Sigma 135 that is a little bit smaller than the Sony lens without the adapter on. So if they can design these lenses like Tamron have done, for instance, the Tamron lens is amazing and it's not large at all. So if they can design lenses like this at this size, it's going to be much more workable than using, say, you know, the Sigma with the MC11 attached onto the end of it, which certainly adds, you know, a bit of weight to it. And it also says on here too that fact Sigma said first compact lens primes f2 designed for Sony full frame mirrorless are in development. So they're saying there that Sigma are going to develop f2 lenses. Tamron also have new FE zoom lenses will be announced. Rumoured 70 to 200 2.8. Well, they're definitely going to have a 200mm 70 to 200 or around that focal length as their next lens, I think, after that 17 to 35 lens is announced. Whether that's announced late this year or the same time next year, so it'll be announced for the middle of next year, we don't know. Yonogo is also saying 51.8 announced. as well. And a new 51.0 FE lens is also being announced. So there's stacks of interesting article or things there that we've got in the pipeline. Like a lot of it, I think, will be coming out late this year for the Olympics particularly. But we really are in an exciting time. I mean, I can't wait to see what Sigma do, for instance, with those. I can't wait to see what Tamron are going to start doing with the 70-200. But let me open up the chat. We'll go through some stuff that people are saying. Where were we? I'm laughing. Kangra says, where is Angry Junior? Wanted to congratulate Aaron while I'm on here too. Aaron just got 10,000 subscribers. So congratulations, Aaron. I'm sure he'll watch this later on. He's probably working at the moment. G'day, Brett. How are you? All right, so let's go down from here. Hero says, you got it, man. You can have some sweet work on there one day. I'll be up there. Oh, no, he's talking to someone else. Creative Film says Sony needs to stop bullshit, BSing us. I won't say the full word, but what else have we got? Poor Michael told me the other day that he dropped his G Master 135 on the first day that he got it. He's saying it's working, but yeah, he dropped it on his first day that he's got his 135. I'll be devastated. We had a discussion about that on Aaron and my show on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I mean. PJ Smith said, all the news about Adobe raising their prices was BS. I got the photography plan the other day from a laptop and it was $9.99 mostly. I think, PJ, though, what happened there was that Adobe said they were only testing that, and I think it was for some new people in Canada. So whether they were feeling the waters to see if they could get away with it or not, I don't know. It certainly hasn't changed for me, though, yet. Jim said, thumbs up, please. Yes, I'd love it if you could give us some thumbs up, guys. So everyone's saying, yes, theirs didn't go up at all. Jim said, lens warranty. You can't get warranty, though, if it's dropped, Jim. You'd have to get it on insurance if your insurance will pay for that. Daniel says, I tested out the 135 G Master today. I need one in my life. It's a beautiful lens. Look, it is a stunning lens. I mean, it really is a beautiful lens. I mean, it's gorgeous. I love the controls, love the aperture ring. You know, just to be able to de-click that if you want to. You know, you have your de-clickable ring here that you can turn on or off, so that if I leave it on, you'll hear there'll be clicking. Now, the problem there is if you're dealing with video, it will, you get stepping. So if you're trying to change your, say for instance, you're in a church and you want to move outside, or the lighting changed drastically. Well, often you can change aperture to fix that. And if you want to do it smoothly, you can't with that because it'll step. So if I go de-click, you'll notice now that there's no sound at all. And you've even got the A on there, which means that you can just set it on auto and then control it from your camera if you want to go that way. So it's just a great feature, but it's particularly a lovely feature for videographers. I have just bought the ND for this. I've bought a ProMaster 82mm variable ND in case if I want to use that for video. And they're both, I think they're both 82mm. I'm pretty sure their Sigma is as well. Doesn't say, but I'm sure it is. I'm pretty sure they're both 82. Let me keep going down. Gerald said the Adobe story wasn't BS. They admitted they tried some new prices, but then backtracked. Yeah. Joseph said, what else are the benefits from global shutter? Joseph, if you check, if you search global shutter, David Osler global shutter, I've put a video about it up there. So I have actually done a video that discusses what global shutter is. It's a bit hard to explain just now. Here, we'll be here too long. But search through my YouTube channel and you'll find it. PJ Smith said, Gerald, we've all got the photography plan on the day the news broke and it was $9.99. It was showed though, PJ, so it was actually out there. Ali says, global shutters are less sensitive to light, though A7S series is known for low light performance. But you don't know what they'll do with that sensor. No one knows at this stage. Michael says, I dropped my ring the other day and smashed my small HD, ND filters, and my 135 is a little stiff now. So he dropped his small HD and the ND filters as well, and his 135. I shouldn't smile. That's terrible, Michael. I feel sorry for you. I'd be devastated. Chris said, I think something from Sony will be released at WPPI 2020, or I hope so, because I'm going to be there. How exciting for me. I'm going to be there with you guys. 2020 will be the year for some great gear releases, I do think. Oh, please, Chris. Yes, let that happen while I'm there. I will be wrapped. I'm staying in Vegas for 5 days, I think, over that period of time. So, love to meet some of you at WPPI if you can get there. Kerry and myself will be coming over. I am DeBrown says, I really think Sony is going to go with a sensor and processor combo that will allow better upgrades and functionality. Possibly, Tony. Yeah, you might be right, I am DeBrown. Creative Film says 4K 60 or 120. I wouldn't be surprised if Sony gives you the option of 120 frames per second, though, in these cameras. That would not surprise me at all in 4K. That really would be a bit of a game changer. So that could be something where they're saying they exceed people's expectations as well. So you never know. That may be a possibility that they give us 4K 120. Higher bit rates and 10-bit 422. Look, we definitely need, in the Sony cameras, we definitely need higher bit rates. And you may say, what for? Well, I can tell you that if you're a full-on videographer particularly, being able to grade, there's a massive difference in being able to grade a 8-bit file as compared to a 10-bit file. You get much more latitude for grading. It's almost like shooting the difference between shooting JPEG and shooting RAW, if that makes you understand the difference that's there. How much you can grade a RAW file compared to a JPEG, well, that's almost the same difference if you're going from 8-bit to 10-bit. And, you know, you get better skies because there's less banding and things like that. But also, if you're working with green screens particularly, it's a massive difference. There is a huge difference with working with green screens with a 10-bit file as compared to an 8-bit file. 8-bit file, you'll see blocking sort of around the edges and things like that, whereas 10-bit, you don't get that. So there is a real need for having a higher bit depth, and that's one area where Sony have really falling behind, only having 100, whereas, you know, you can get the Fujis and Nikons and things like that are getting 400 megabits. So that's something that they do have to change. Jim said, PJ Smith Gerald is correct. Adobe did raise prices. I received their email. What else have we got? Casper said, did you see Nikon's horrible sales numbers? I'm going to talk about that, Casper, at the end of today. The last story is actually, I'm going to discuss that with you guys. Hero, oh my God, 101.4. Yeah, that would be really interesting. You know, and the thing is too that I adored using that Sigma 105, and it's a pity I had to take that back. I may buy that lens one day. It's a pity I had to take it back because my studio is quite long. I think it's 9 meters long, and I'm borderline being able to do full body. Like, I've got to push my body almost against the back part of my studio to get a full body in. In fact, if I do a full body with the 135 today, I may even have to open up, I've got massive sliding doors. I may have to open up the sliding doors and go outside the studio and shoot from outside the studio in. Whereas the 105 wouldn't have that issue. So it would be, it's a fantastic portrait lens like that if you need to have that difference. Because I worked out when I did that distance test that the difference was, say, between, it was roughly about 3 meters, close to 3 meters difference, I think, that you could move in with a 105. So the 100 1.4 would be incredible if Sony could produce that, for instance. Unboxed Tech Review said 500mm f4 would cost, I don't know, it's going to be expensive. I've got no idea. Have some guesses what you guys think. I've got no idea. Daniel said, last time I messed with Adobe, they were offering me $9.99 for Lightroom only, or $20 for the photography plan with storage. Hi from Morocco, Abu's saying. Daniel says, you get 3 months for free if you buy a camera or new lenses new. What's that with Daniel? Is that with Adobe? PJ Smith, so how much does it cost for WPPI 2020? I don't know, and I need to talk to you guys about that. Is there a price to get in, or can I get a media pass? And I need to, hopefully some people that have done YouTubers or whatever will be able to let me know because I noticed, I looked the other day and WPPI had a media pass. Would I qualify for a media pass? I'd love you guys to let me know in the comments. So I don't know what the cost is. I think there is a price to attend though. A9 is awesome. I don't blame you, Sammy Photo. It's the best camera I've ever used. I adore the A9, and it's going to get better and better, I think, with the new firmware updates. That's for sure. Hi from Madeira. Dane says, good evening from Iowa, USA. We have gotten into the Sony a6700 or whatever conversation yet. Yes, we've just gone through that. You might want to go back after the show and check what we've been talking about there. What else have we got? Jim, I think he shared that for the prices that you've got to get in. Gerald says, Jim Penn, Planet Hollywood Hotel and Casino Resort. Yeah, that's where we're staying, Jim. So I am staying, and Gerald's meeting is there actually, so we'll be having meetups and stuff like that. I am staying at Planet Hollywood for the time WPPI is on. So love it if you guys could come as well. We can all have a few drinks together, a few coffees. What else have we got? Bill says, I dropped my Canon T1i with the 18 to 55mm lens on concrete from 3 feet and no damage. I got lucky it bounced, yep. Well, it happened to me with my D810. I think I had the Nikon D810 and a 2470 on it, I think, and I dropped it. Luckily, it didn't damage the lens at all, but the lens mount on my D810 broke. So luckily, I suppose that was the thing that gave. And it was in front of the bride, and I tried to act like it didn't bother me at all, but inside I was dying. But luckily, that's why you have to have extra gear. But it did pull the mount out completely of my Nikon D810. So it's happened to me. Hero says, I kiss my 105 every night before bed. That's how much I love it. And I don't blame you. LT, because I loved it as well. LT Deadeye says, can anyone recommend memory cards for the A9? Well, I'll show you what I'm using. It's just the Sony ones. The fast card, I'm using those. Let me see if it'll focus. Oh, I have to bring my hand up. It's got face detection on, so it's always going to go for my... So I'm using these. Let me just see if I can... There you go. So I'm using the 128 Sony cards. They're the 300... What are the R300 megabytes and the right 299. But then, because it's only the slower slot in number 2, I'm just using these Extreme Pros. So that's what I'm using in my backup card, that one. And that works fantastic. Now, there's no need to put a really fast card in slot 2 because it's only a slower slot. So that's what you've got to watch. It's an SD2. And it's an SD1 on the slot 2. Now, I'm just saving RAW onto my faster card, and I'm saving JPEG onto my backup card. So you don't need anything faster than that. So don't go and buy 2 fast cards. You're wasting your money. Nourish says, good evening from Seattle. Gerald says, yes, Sony has already registered a patent for the 105. Yeah, that'd be a really interesting lens. Michael says, David, you can get a idea pass for free. What's an idea pass? Media passes. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I'll have to apply, Michael. So I'll have to apply for the media card. That sounds good. Kerry... Though, what would I do with Kerry? Would she be able to get one with me, Michael, though? Or would I have to pay for Kerry to come in? Or could I claim her under my channel? Let me know. I'd love to know because she'll be dropping in with me as well. Rui said, I dropped my a7 III with a flash on it. The camera was okay, but I broke the foot on my flash. I've done that as well. And that's one real weakness with the Sony cameras. I think it was the a7 IIs that happened to. I had the Sony flash on there. And it was sitting down, and I don't know what happened. Somehow it fell over, and the flash hit something on the table, and it broke the mount. So I had to send that back to Pro Support, to get fixed. It is a real weakness of the Sony cameras. Unfortunately, the mounts aren't very strong. They're not like Nikon and Canon mounts, that's for sure. Hero says, can I post pricing for 219? Yeah, you can, Hero. Yeah, just put it up there. Iski said, you can generally get a free expo pass. There is a cost to attend if you want to attend the daily classes and programming. And some photo walks, workshops are also extra. Okay. Rick said, WPPI usually $45 and then you pay more for workshops. Where were we? Chris says you can get a media pass, or maybe you can get it as a presenter with Sony or another company you like. Gerald says you might get a discount for media pass or YouTuber. The price is graduated for how many sessions and events you can attend, and also if you are a member of PDN. Yeah, I did look at PDN because I noticed that, and they were saying you can just join it and then it's cheaper as well. Hero says, I need to see David and Photomiak do a shoot together. Hopefully we can do that. We're trying to organise something in the desert. Joseph said, how do you like the ProMaster? I haven't used it yet, but I love ProMaster filters. I've got it on here. This is the one that I'm using here. I'll show you. On the Sony, this is the ProMaster. I don't know whether it'll show. Let me just see if I can get that to focus. So this is the one I'm using on my 55mm. This is the 67... No, this is the 49 millimeter one. It's the HGX variable ND. It is in the links in the description down below, so I do have that on there. But I do recommend ProMaster. ProMaster are incredible filters. They're a bit dearer, quite a bit sometimes, but there's no color cast and things like that with them. That's why I like them so much. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just telling you what I like to use. PJ Smith said, okay, I am a Getty Images star photographer. Maybe they can give me a media credentials. Where else were we? Oops. Where were we? So I do like the ProMaster filter, but I haven't used the 82mm one yet, so I'll let you know when I've used that. Jim said, did Planet Hollywood have a discount? No, I just paid, but it wasn't expensive, Jim, so I did get really good rates. Jim Penn, 70 thumbs up, looking for 100. Yeah, let's see if we can make 100. I would be wrapped if we can do that. LT Jedi says, thank you, David. Jose said, good evening from Belize. Gerald says, because you can't register yet for 2020 WPPI, but booking.com for the cheapest rates in the USA, better rates than Planet Hollywood site. I think that's what I do. Don't know who David booked with. I think I did booking.com as well, Gerald. I can't remember. Is the Canon Sony? No, it's not. It's a... they never had any Sony in stock. This is the interesting thing. When I spoke to CR Kennedy, I asked them if they had Sony lenses in stock, and they said, David, this is just how well Sony are selling images. Sony lenses are selling. They didn't have any in stock. The 105 that I had was in stock, but the 135 is out of stock. So they never had any at that time. But in one way, I'm really happy that I've got the Canon version, because I really would like to try one with the MC11 adapter just to see how well it works, particularly with the A9. So it's another test that I can do to see how adaptive lenses works. So yes, I'm not going to do a real focus test against the Sony because I don't think that's fair, seeing that it's got the MC11 adapter on it. But I'll still tell you how the focusing works and things like that, which will be a really interesting test. So no, it's a Canon version that I've got. Bill said, you're a pro, David. I would cry for a more expensive camera to be damaged. Chris said, I know a guy who gets 2 media passes, one for him and one for his video guy. Yeah, hopefully that's what I can do, Chris. And please, if you can, come and meet us out there. Like, you know, I don't know whenever we'll get back. Because next time I've probably got to go and do a European trip to sort of balance it all out. So please, if you can. I'm also going to be in LA though. So if you can't get out to WPPI, we will have a meetup with in LA as well that Gerald may be able to do. Organise for us all. I've got to be careful because I've got to watch it with my visa that it doesn't look like I'm earning money while I'm over there, or they can refuse me entry. So everything will have to be free in that regard. So, but we certainly can organise meetups, and it may be when I get there that we then organise a spontaneous meetup that it doesn't then matter. But, you know, we'll see what happens. But I'll definitely be holding some shoots while I'm in LA as well. My plan then is to go up to Yosemite and also San Francisco. So that's what our plan is at this stage. But I'm coming out for 4 weeks, so I'm going to have 3 weeks in LA or around that. We've got Disneyland sort of booked in for as well as WPPI. Michael says, yes, you'll be able to invite other people under your company. Once you register, you can invite others for free. Okay, thanks, Michael. Polar Pro makes the best filter in my opinion. Yeah, I like the ProMaster, but we all like different things, PJ. Brett says, I got an order from Sony Australia for an RMT BIBT remote commander wireless remote Bluetooth. Oh yeah, so you've got the so you're getting that Bluetooth wireless remote, Brett. Can't wait to try it over the cable release. Jim said, I use ProMaster variable ND filter. It works great, as David said. Yeah, there's no color cast at all on the ProMasters. They are amazing. If you watch I think it was Ken Undone, is it? He did a review of filters, and he was talking about ProMaster, and the ProMaster was basically the best. Have a review of that, Ken Undone. John says, I think A9 II will have a lot better weather sealing. It's its weakest point. Yeah, but you're probably right. They do have to improve it, but the A9 at the moment is the best weather sealing camera that Sony have produced. I've taken it out on the rain and really had it quite wet, and I've never had an issue with it. The only weak area, I believe, is underneath where the battery compartment is. If you put it into water, you can have issues. Apart from that, it's pretty good. 84 likes. We're getting to the 100. What else have we got? Chris said, if you're looking to test some adaptive lenses, any chance of maybe testing the Sigma 150 to 600? Chris, that's what I'm going to ask CRK Kennedy if I can have a lens of that lens, because I would love to try that. Now, look, I don't do wildlife very much at all, but I'd love to try and do some birding and stuff like that, you know, and try the 150 to 600 and see how it works. I'm sure if they've got it there, they'll let me have one. So, yeah, that might be one that I look at in the future with CR Kennedy, and that would be exciting. I'd love to try that lens out. Michael says, book your hotel months out before WPPI, and the hotel rooms can be as cheap as $35 to $60. And that's what I did, Michael. I got it very, very reasonable. I think I paid about $45 per night. And that's why I booked it so far out. It's great. And also, you can do it where I haven't had to pay. I'll pay when I get there, but you just make a booking and then you can pay when you get there, which is fantastic. So that's what I've done, yeah. So I've pre-booked it well in advance. So if you are going to do it, book it in advance. Are you going to WPPI, Michael? Are we going to be able to meet you there? Hi, David. Is the a7 III getting the real-time AF tracking? No, I don't think it is, Tazam, unfortunately. I don't think the processor in that camera or the a7 III can take it. That's why you're not seeing it on any of the other cameras. Anything new that comes out now, I believe, will have it. Like the a6400 is incredible. I've got that in the other room, actually. Really starting to love using that camera now. The A9 is another level, though, but you won't see that AF tracking in any other camera, I don't think. Sam says, I was shocked how well the MC11 and the Sigma 150 to 600 works. Don't even care about Sony releasing the 200 to 600. That's why I'd like to try it. And I will. I will see if I can get that 150 to 600. Gerald said, yes, I will help in organising LA, and Langston and other LA members can help. That's fantastic. Brett said, yes, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that remote works. I think it looks pretty good. Red Wolf says, cheers from Costa Rica. Hope to see you in WPPI 2020. That'd be fantastic. I'd so love to meet you all there. Gerald Undone, that's it. Sorry, Gerald. Not that he probably watches this anyway, but yeah, he did a good review of different ND filters, and the ProMaster was really good in it. PJ Smith would love to see you in LA, David. Yep. So hopefully we can meet up, PJ. Ken Undone. I'm just laughing because Michael said, did Ken in the basement? Yeah, it's Gerald Undone. Excuse me. Johnny says, re-US, don't forget to bring your main phone. Customs and borders have the right to go through your phone and computer. Yep, I will bring my main phone. Oh, don't bring your main phone. Well, there's nothing on there that I'm worried about them seeing, Johnny. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be having anything that's illegal or whatever on there. So that'd be fine. I'm not worried about that. David, did you see the DJ Action Cam pics? Yes, I did. I liked your Osler Images Facebook page. Oh, thank you so much, Toasting Photo. Yeah, I did. It looks interesting. So it's sort of like a GoPro. I think it's only rumoured at this stage, but the pics look real. It looks like they're going to bring out like a GoPro, and it looked very, very similar to what the GoPro is. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk about that when I hear more about that. Jim said the A9 heating issue is actually a benefit in the rain. There is so much heat it will keep the camera dry. What else? Before we move on, we'll have to move on in a minute. Graphic Mill said, the first day, a7siii 16 to 35 f4 client standing there, I connected the camera to a short tripod. Arcus didn't align. The camera fell off, hit the pavement and rolled away. Oh no, but it was all okay. Oh, it's horrible when things like that happen. It really is. Abu says, I shoot Panasonic Bridge FZ1000 and it's education and it's identical to the Sony a7 III with 70 to 400. I don't know why. I shoot video surf. Delta Dave says, will you be testing the Optus 100? I don't think so. They may have that lens, so I might be able to. CR Kennedy does... The only thing really that they didn't produce is... Sony, they don't sell Sony cameras, for instance. They sell more of the high-ended cameras like medium format and stuff. But they do sell the lenses, things like Sigma lenses, stuff like that. So it may be that they do have the Optus lens that I could have a look at. I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look and see if they've got that in stock. Gerald said, use the Sigma 150 to 600 with the MC11. Works fine on Sony cameras. I have that lens. Oh, so you've got that, Gerald. I'll have to see if I can get it so I can test that one. Is baby Angry Jr. still staying in your room? Yeah, he's, where is he? Where's he gone? Oh, here. This was sent to me from Delta Dave. I love it. What a crack up. Jim says, hoping for WP 2020 also. Yeah, love to see you out there, Jim. And that's about it. Graffy Mill says, I use a Tamron 150 to 600, a7 III and MC11 works very well. That's another one, isn't it, that you could use? All right, so let's go to next story. How are we going with the likes anyway? We've got 94. We're nearly getting there. It's not long. I reckon we're going to get to 100 likes, which would be fantastic. All right, so let me go back to the next story. And I've got to put into here what time we're on. What time is it? It's 58. God, we're nearly an hour and I've only gone through that. I'm hopeless, honestly. 58:30. So I just wanted to talk quickly about some Samyang updates. There's two new firmware... Oh, no, before I do that, this is a new leaked image of the Samyang 45 1.8 autofocus lens. Samyang are really hitting things out of the park at the moment. I'm so tempted to get the 85 1.4. All the reviews that I've seen of that lens, it looks outstanding. In fact, a lot of the reviews that I've seen are saying that it renders nicer than the G Master. So I'd love to get one to review, but it may be, and I'm still thinking about it. I haven't made up my mind yet completely. I'm still thinking about selling my Batis 1.8 and getting the Samyang 85 1.4. So I'm just thinking about it. They're not in the shops yet, so I can't purchase one. I might wait until I see one, have a look at it before I make that decision. But the Samyang really seem to be doing amazing lenses. All the reviews that I've seen of that 85 1.4 look outstanding. It's incredibly sharp, lovely rendering, and it looks like it's a great made lens. The days are gone now where third-party lenses really were manufactured and they look much more inferior to what Sony and everyone else were doing, and Canon and Nikon. Like Sigma, Samyang, Tamron are all making incredible lenses. They really are. So it's pretty exciting, and 45 will really interest a lot of people, because 45 is the perfect focal length if you're dealing with as your eye sees. So if you're talking about it like that, as your eye sees life is I believe 45 is the closest that you can get to that. And it's a 45 1.8, so you're going to get lovely rendering from this as well. So really interesting lens. It's an SR5, so it looks like it's definitely going to be true. They're not saying yet what this will cost or anything. But, the Sigma 85 is very reasonably priced. I think it's around about $900 Australian, and it's probably $600 US. So this may be around the $400 mark, something like that. Really exciting, and I'm so happy now to be shooting Sony. We're the luckiest people now. I've got 110 likes. Thank you so much, guys. We are the luckiest people now using Sony, aren't we? I mean, look at all these lenses that we can now get. We've got Sigma, Samyang, Tamron, Sony. We can use adaptive lenses. I mean, we're blessed. We really are blessed with Sony. Now, before I come back to the channel, I'm going to also show this as well. So that's a Samyang 45 1.8 rumour. There's also an update if you have the 35 1.4. There is now that, but you do need to get the adapter. I just wish you could update like Tamron can, but obviously because Tamron are owned by Sony, or part owned by Sony, they give Sony the ability to update the lenses directly through the camera. So that's one real benefit of having the Tamron lens. I wish Samyang had that. So you are going to have the dock or send it in to get the firmware update done. So there is now this firmware update. You can download it now in the link that you've got there. So that's the 35 1.4. The 85 1.4 has also had an update already, and it's saying it's got improved capabilities on the Sony A9, improved high-speed burst and AF performance, improved focus accuracy and burst mode as well, except the firmware version 5 for A9. So I'm not sure what that means, whether they're going to have another... Oh, there you go. We are working on developing performance in burst mode in the firmware version 5 for the A9. So I suppose because that firmware update is so new that Samyang now are going to have to give an update for that too to work on the A9. So it looks like there's an update for that. Did it mention what the updates were for... Oh, the updates for the 35 1.4 are just improved capabilities on the a7 III and the a7R III, improved aperture performance in video mode as well. So it's great that they're updating these lenses. Really exciting news, and particularly how they're saying that they're improving the focus of that 85 1.4 for the A9. Fantastic. So let's go over the chat and just catch up to see what people are saying. Oh, Aaron's here. Congratulations, Aaron. I just said before, congratulations on your 10,000 subscribers. So wrapped for you, mate. Really am. Where'd I put that next story? What does that mean, burn him? Michael said, Jim Penn, don't buy up all the gear. Leave a little for David. Why? What's happened? What was Jim buying? I'm not sure. Oh, you're talking about going to WPPI, or I know. Look, I'm going to be in so much. The funny thing is, Kerry said to me, "You're going to buy stuff, aren't you?" And when I'm at WPPI, and I said, "Well, it might be a one-off opportunity." So she gave me the rolled eyes. So she did say, she just said it like that, "You're going to buy stuff, aren't you?" I laughed. The other thing too that I want to go out to is Sammy's as well. I want to go out to Sammy's and have a look around there. So I'm looking forward to that too. What else have we got? Tasm said, I tried the 150 to 600 with Metabones. Horrible autofocus. Yeah, I always hear that often the Metabones is not as good as the MC11. But some say it is. I mean, I don't know. Tamron 150 to 600 G2 supposed to be better. Interesting. Aaron's in, so congratulations, Aaron. Jim said, Michael will buy Kerry a beer while David shops. I love it. I know. We'll just have to distract her. I am going to be probably in trouble, though. I know it. I will be in trouble. Casper's having a go at Aaron, calling him the baby junior loser alert because he calls him Mini Ken or whatever he's saying. Jim Ped, said that. Aaron said, Jim said, rock on, Aaron. PJ Smith said, Samyang is stupid for releasing a 45 when people really need a good 35 1.8 for Sony. Well, I suppose it's what a lot of people like the 45mm focal length, PJ, so it might be quite good. I know a lot love that focal length. So Van Ho put that in there. Let me see if I can open that. Open a new window, and I'll see if I can show it to you. This is the DJI. Does it have pictures of it? Let me check. No, it's not. It's only giving you this thing here. It's only giving you that unleash your other side. It's in 5 days, 11 hours, 55 minutes. So in 5 days, it's going to be announced. But I did notice that I saw some early pre-release pictures of it, and it looked like a GoPro. It really did look like a GoPro, so stay tuned for that. Let me come back to the questions. Aaron says, I nearly missed your live show tonight. Michael said, David, no more Sony talk. I'm starting to have a Walkman flashbacks. I love it. Sammy's Fairfax is awesome. I want to get to Sammy's. I can't wait to have a look out there. That'll be another one where I'll be in trouble. Perhaps I'm going to have to send Kerry to Disneyland or something. So that remember what we talk about in this channel stays in this channel. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I might have to organise Kerry to go and get a facial, stuff like that, while I go to Sammy's. Then I've got a month. Although, if I buy the gear and have it, how am I going to... Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But, yeah, anything, we can recommend where I can send Kerry. Nice massage, facial. Shocking. Langston said, funny story about Sammy's camera. I was just there today picking up the Production Manager 50 by Think Tank. Lovely. I love Think Tank bags. Really do. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go out to Sammy's. I've got to have a look around there. Gerald, the MC11 works much better with the Sigma lenses and Canon lenses than the Metabones. Yeah, that's what I've heard. MM would love to meet you in LA, David. Well, let's do it. We're going to have meetups for sure. Michael says... I didn't get that. Langston said, Sammy's on Fairfax. Take an Uber. And the camera department is on the 3rd floor. I'm going to hire a car, I think, when I get there. But... PJ says, I think there will be good turnout for David in Los Angeles. Seems like a lot of us live here. Most of my subscribers, believe it or not, are from the US. 75% are from the US. So that shows you I've got a big following in the US. The rest is split up between the UK, obviously Europe, and Australia. I mean, Australia's population is very small, so that doesn't surprise me due to the fact our population here is very small. But yeah, 75% from the US. So thank you, guys. What else have we got? Langston says, I don't know, Disneyland requires a small fortune these days. But perhaps, no, we'll be going to Disneyland together. Aaron says, so she gets a 45 facial and you get a 4,000 camera gear. Aaron, that's the way it works, isn't it? I mean, I can't help it if her facial is only $45. What can we do about that? I mean, if I go to Sammy's and then I see something that's on special, what do? Robert says, what would you rate as the sharpest 20mm or lens for Sony? Can be adapted Canon. No need for AF. Well, I can tell you what I think is one of the sharpest lens. Well, 20mm it's hard, but the sharpest lens around that I've used is the 16 APS-C lens from Sigma. That lens is nuts. It's that sharp. It is nuts. And it would give you around about that if you went into full frame, but obviously you'd have to use it in crop mode. So if you've got an a7 III, you're going to get, what, about an 11 pixel, or I think it was an 8 megapixel file. If you've got the a7R II, though, it's fine. You get a 20-odd megapixel file size. Native, I don't know, because I haven't got any. The only one that I've got around that size at 20mm or close to it is the 16 APS-C lens, which is nuts. It's so sharp, it's incredible. I noticed the other day too that I saw a review from, I've got to remember who it was now. I'm shocking with names. He did a review of the 56mm Sigma. Let me just, I can't stop it. Yeah, and he said that was the sharpest, Dustin Abbott, I think it is, isn't it? He said that was the sharpest lens that he'd used, period, on a Sony camera. That was the 56 Sigma lens for APS-C. That's another lens I wasn't going to buy anymore. I laugh at myself because I always do it. I wasn't going to buy any more APS-C lenses, but since I've bought that 16mm Sigma, I'm now so tempted to get the 56 because it gives you that perfect 85mm focal length, and apparently it's stunning. So that's another lens that I should have a look at, and it's not expensive. So I don't know 20mm. Someone else may be able to, Robas, may be able to tell us in the chat what they think is the best 20mm lens, because I'd be curious. But I know that Greg Thomas, g'day Greg, says the 18mm Batis is good. Yes, and that's actually a really nice lens, and I forgot about that one. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for mentioning that. Tim, I love it. Tim said she's getting a free trip. I could just say, Kerry, you're getting a free trip. I love it. Oh, that's so funny. Nassar said, I bought a Sony a7 III, but the lenses are expensive. Tim said, screen past 100 likes. I know, I've done so well. It's nearly 120. It's amazing. The lenses aren't that expensive. Listen to that rain. I can't believe that we're getting rain like this. They're not that. The Sony lenses is a fallacy that they're that expensive. They're not, because if you look at lenses that were released, when Nikon released, say a 70-200 f2.8, or the Canon did, they were the same price what Sony pays. So I think that's a bit wrong to say that. I really don't think it's wrong. Don't forget too, you don't have to buy Sony lenses if you can't afford it. Buy Samyang, buy Tamron, things like that. You can always buy adaptive lenses and then, get the MC11 adapter. There's so many options for you if you don't want to go down the Sony way. But Sony lenses aren't that expensive. They're comparable to what everyone else has out there. Langston said, oh, and Sammy's paid the sales tax on my purchase, so yeah, check them out if you're in LA. Hard to get to, but worth it if you see stuff in person, not on Amazon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and thanks, Greg, for mentioning that 18 Batis. Gerald says you could get a discounted Disneyland pass better from Australian travel agent in advance. I'll have to look at that actually. Barry said if you buy any more gear, Kerry will put you into Disneyland permanently. I love it. Jim said just take photos of Kerry with a new G Master lens after facial, and then get her to agree to the amazing photos. Good distraction. I love it, Jim. You're going to be a bad influence on me, Jim, I think. Rubber says, thanks, Greg. I have the Noah 15. Yeah, that is a nice lens as well. I forget, there's so many lenses out. No, it wasn't Jared Poland. It was Dustin Abbott. Michael said, I like Dustin. He's great. He is. He's a really good reviewer. You should never say you're never going to buy something. Andre says, I got the 85 Batis and I'm thinking to buy the 135 GM2. Can't have just one between these two. I think you need both. Andre, I definitely think you need the 85mm focal length and the 135. If you're doing full body with the 135, you have to stand a long way away. If you've got the room, it's fantastic. But if you haven't got the room, you need the Batis, or you need an 85mm focal length. I think they're still two perfect focal lengths to work together. Rickrat, did you see Jared Poland review of the A9 new focusing? No, I must check that out actually. He had a glowing review shooting hockey, said it was doing better than his D5. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think there's anything can match the A9 even close. I don't think anything can even come close to that. Rubber says, has anyone tried the Polar Pro variable ND on the A7R III photography, not video? No, I haven't, because I haven't got the R3. Someone else may be able to mention that. All right, let me go to the next story. And let me put in here. Oop, where's my mouse? What are we on? We're on 1:14:50. All right, so let's go to the next story. I wanted to just go over this reasonably quickly. Look, we won't spend too long. I won't stop again now until we finish, because I'll just bring up Q&A. Really interesting that it really makes you understand how good Sony's sensors are when you think how much they've held up after this period of time. Thank you so much also. Also just gave me a donation. What did you just say? Let me go to this because he has donated something, so I want to answer it for him. He said here, bought the new 135 1.8 GM instead of my 105 Sigma. Yeah, well, and it's a decision you've got to make. I mean, I could have bought the 105, but I went for the 135. It doesn't mean that I won't get the 105 later, but I do, from my testing, and look, and stay tuned for the real testing, I've still got to do it. But the 135 is outstanding. I mean, the focus alone is a reason to buy that lens. It really is. It's the quickest focusing lens I've ever seen. So I don't blame you. It's a beautiful lens. It really is. And he also gave another donation there too. No, that's also as well. So thank you so much for that. I've got another one here from, I think it's ALAL, says, "Hey Aaron Anderson, love your channel," and he gave me a donation to say that. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. All right, so let me go back to the story. So DXO scores, and I was saying in this that how well Sony have produced. If you think how long the A7R3 has been out, and it's matching the scores for the Panasonic SR1, the SR1 or the 1R, and also the Z7. It's matched them. In fact, the overall score, the Sony is slightly ahead of the Z7, but it's identical to the Panasonic Lumix. Where I think it's hard to see because it's not quite big enough, but what is it, 3523, 3525. ISO performance between the A7R3 and the Panasonic is almost identical. It's exactly the same. Landscape, so dynamic range is better on the A7R3 though. It's better on that than both of those cameras combined. It's close to the Nikon, and it beats the landscape score of the Panasonic. Portrait color depth is 26, so portrait color depth is slightly better on the Nikon and the Panasonic. The overall score is 100 for the Sony A7R2. It's 99 for the Nikon Z7, and it's also 100 on the Panasonic Lumix. So it just shows you. And if you're looking at the price range, well, the Nikon and the Sony's the cheapest camera out of this group by about $200, I think. Amazing. I mean, you think that that's been out now, what, 2 years? Or is it even 3? I can't remember. 2 years, perhaps? It's incredible that the score is still so high against these newcomers that have come out, and it's holding its own. I mean, it really is. It's incredible. It really is incredible. It just says, cons, the Panasonic dynamic range never quite matches the range of the A7R3, remaining about a one-stop advantage throughout the ISO range. So, unbelievable. You know, incredible. And that's really all I wanted to say with that is how lucky we are. Just wait till Sony updates these cameras, and then what are these other companies going to do? I mean, you know, who knows? I wanted to quickly bring up this next story, which is the Canon. Let me just bring that up. I'll put the time in. What are we on? 118, 1845. Canon have announced, I just wanted to announce this because I so wish Sony would bring one of these out. They've just announced that the RF85 1.2 is going to be released, and it's already out there because there's some images that I'll show you in a minute. It's always a lens that I've lusted after, and there's something about it that I just love the look of this lens. And I'd love Sony to do a 1.285 as well. But it's beautiful. There's also another version of this which has more rendering like the STF Sony lens, which I can't remember what the name is, but it's got better rendering as well. Let me just see if I can find that because I'll show you. if I can bring it up, I'll show you the difference between these two lenses. Let me just search Gerald because he posted it. Now, let me have a look. Where was it? He was talking about something from Canon. Oh, I can't find it now. I'll have to see if I can find it later. But there's another lens of that Canon lens that's out there that is incredible for rendering if you like the STF look. I'm not saying everyone likes it, but it's got different rendering. I don't know where it is. I can't find it. I'm just seeing if it's there. No, can't find it. Doesn't matter. So... yeah, it's something I really would love to have a look at. I mean, I do also like some of the controls in these, and one area where you have to give Canon credit is their design is great and their lenses are really nice. I mean, and really good. Like the way you can have the control ring to do different things, program it to do different things like change aperture or shutter speed or whatever you wanted to do with it. That's a really nice feature as well. But the rendering is more what I like about the look of these lenses, and they do render beautifully. It's certainly a lens that I do hope Sony brings out at one stage. It looks like this as the typical rendering of the 85 1.2 that I love so much. And it's certainly one that I would love Sony to bring out. And they've talked about it. They've said that they want to do 1.2 lenses. So hopefully, instead of replacing the G Master with a newer version as it is, they may bring out a G Master 1.2 lens. And that would be fantastic. I would love that to happen. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Just an interesting fact. Last story I wanted to go on was Nikon because it doesn't look like they're doing very well at all. 121 40. Because this story is really bad news for Nikon. Let me just lower this down now so you can see the start of it. It looks really bad, actually, because they're saying it's dropped 18% since last year. So Nikon are struggling, and this is probably one of the reasons why now I understand why they've been offering so much discounts on their cameras lately. They're trying to push them out a little bit more than what they've been getting, which is a real shame. I mean, I'd hate to see Nikon go under. They've got other things, other business things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But, it does look like it's not good for their imaging department particularly. Excuse me. So they're saying Nikon Corporation held its latest earnings call earlier today and has since published their full financial details, which you can get. And like I said, I'll put all these links down below. I'm not going to go through it in full detail. For the fiscal year 2019, which ran from the 1st of April 2018 to March 31st, 2019. And it says, though there are many positives, and they're talking about other areas, not the Nikon imaging area, there was a glaring exception with the substantial revenue decrease of 17.9% compared to 2018. And it's the imaging department that's lost this. It's their camera section and lenses section. And it's saying basically that it reports a revenue of, I suppose this is the Japanese yen, 296.1 billion for its most recent fiscal year. And it's had a 64.6 billion decrease year on year through sales revenue for full frame cameras, experienced growth through sales and revenue for the full frame cameras over the last 2 years. Nikon reports falling 8.9 billion short of the sales forecast for its interchangeable lens cameras and lenses. And there's whole stuff here talking about it that you can have a read of if you want to have a look at that as well. But they're talking about unit shipments, how much it's down, things like that. So it's not looking good for Nikon in that regards. And, if we look at it overall, Canon are struggling. And I'm not surprised with the recent things that they've done with the hot shoe, basically taking things away from their users, like this ridiculous cropping, things like that, you know, not having IBIS in their latest cameras, mirrorless cameras. Nikon doing something similar in that they produced a camera that doesn't have dual card slots, which if you're a professional forces you to stay with their digital SLRs. It's stupid things like that that these camera manufacturers have to start to understand that, wait a minute, why are Sony doing okay? It's because Sony aren't holding back. And that's one of the big differences between what Sony are giving compared to what Nikon and what Canon are giving. And if they don't do something really, really soon, these manufacturers are going to be in big trouble. I mean, real trouble, because I think their users are starting to say, I've had enough. And they're just starting to say, I'm going to jump. That's it now. I'm moving. I really want to go to a company that's progressive and giving me things without holding back. So it's a worry because, like I said to you, I really don't want, as a user, I don't want Nikon to fail. I don't want Canon to fail. I don't want anyone to fail, because we need innovation and we need people to challenge. I'm a Sony shooter. We need people to challenge Sony to make Sony do more wonderful things for us. Because if Sony are threatened, they will certainly bring out more gear. I am a little bit worried that when Sony release all of these new cameras, that they're going to be so far ahead of what the competition has, that it's almost could be game over. And it does worry me a little bit that, you know, if Sony release an A7R4, if they release an A9 II, if they release an A7S III, which is going to happen, and an A7000 in the coming months, what's going to happen to the industry? And it does worry me. It worries me a lot. Nikon and Canon should have lifted their game. There was no excuse for what they released as their first cameras. Nikon is better than their Canon release, but they still held back. And we all know that they've held back. You know, and releasing a camera at that price range with one card slot was ridiculous. It was nuts. And what Canon have done, well, we don't even need to talk about that, because they're shooting themselves in the foot more and more and more lately. And it does worry me. I'd love to know your comments about that in the description down below as well, because we're just going to go to Q&A in a minute. But, you know, leave your comments in the description about that below. Apart from that, guys, we're going to go to Q&A. So let me put down the time. We'll have a few minutes on that, and then it's about time I got a coffee. What is it? It's 1:26:58. I'll just put it on that. So let's open up to Q&A. Love to have a few minutes with you guys to discuss this with you all. Let me find out where we were. Tasm said, hi David, your thoughts on the 70-300G Master for Wildlife? Well, I've never used it, Tasm, so someone might be able to say in the comments what it's like, but I haven't used that lens, so I can't comment about that. Greg also said the bat is 25, and then there is the 16-35 zooms. Yeah, I think he was talking more about primes though, Greg. But yeah, the Batis is good, but that may be a fraction wide for what he was saying. But you were certainly right with the Batis 18. Mike said, can you compare the 85 GM 1.4, the Canon 85 1.4 to RF? I may be able to if I can ever get my hands on an RF camera, Mike. I'd love to do that though. Thanks for the donation, Oslo. And your eyes also, AL has given me a donation too for Aaron's show. Yes, the Polar Pro is amazing for photos. Just bought one and used it for sunsets the other night. Oops. What else have we got? Aaron says, yes, the 35 is way faster focus. Robert says, yeah, it might be tough. I don't need it ASAP, but I also want to make it my last ND filter. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I would recommend ProMaster. David, at 2700, they better have copies in that lens. Which lens was that, Michael? I can't remember now which one we were talking about. Jim said, just buy the 85 1.2 at Sammy's. I know, Jim. Oh, a good tinker to tape back from the USA. What else have we got? Aaron said, oh nice, let us know about that 70-200. He was talking to someone else. PJ said, of course the Z sales are horrible. It has one card slot and no vertical grip. I know, what were they thinking there? And I keep forgetting that. having a camera which is meant to be a professional camera not to be able to attach a vertical grip on is nuts. I mean, I don't use vertical grips often, but I've had it on lately due to the fact that if you're using the 135, I mean, having the 135, let me just put it on. Having the 135 with the grip, I think, makes it better to handle. You're dealing with a much... I'll put the grip on. You're dealing with a much more balanced camera if you deal with it with having the vertical grip on. It does balance much better. And even if you're sitting it down, it balances better as well. But it gives me something to hold onto. And if I go vertical, then I've got something to grip on that side. So having that vertical grip when I'm using these larger lenses really does assist me. So I've actually put it back on, and I very rarely use it. So I have put that back on for that. It certainly helps. And it certainly helped when I had the 105. Without the 105... it was really unbalanced not having the battery grip on the camera. So that's one thing. So Nikon not even giving you the ability to have a vertical grip on is, you know, it's bad. I mean, that's one thing I forgot about that. And yeah, not even giving you that ability to put one on was stupid. Really stupid by Nikon. And the one card slot, well, yeah, I would not be shooting a paid gig with a one card slot camera again after I had one that got damaged. First thumbs down, it's probably after I bagged Nikon. What else have we got? Hero says the Nikon Z and Canon R cameras are trash. Well, the Nikon Z's not trash. Hero. I mean, it's actually quite a good camera, but it's not worth the money that you're paying for that. The Canon, yes, I'd say, look, at the moment, the cropping and stuff like that on it, without the IBIS, yeah, it's crazy. The Nikon is a really well-made camera. It really is. It's hurt by the one card slot, and it's hurt by not being able to have the battery as well, you know, the extra grip, the battery grip. It's hurt by that. That it was a silly move. If Nikon goes under, I will buy some of their full glass at a good price. Ben says they shot themselves in the foot by crippling the Z6. Yeah, I don't know what's... And Ben's a Nikon shooter. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they'll release a new one soon that will be much, much better, and I think they need to. Mike said, I hope Sony releases a Mark II of the 85 GM. I think they probably will, and I'm just wondering whether, and that's why I mentioned, are they going to release a 1.2 version of that? They need to put the same focusing motor that's in this, in the 135, and I think that's what's going to happen with the new GMs now. You'll probably find that the latest, or the new GMs that come out will probably have that same focusing motor that the 135's got, because it's outstanding. It really is outstanding. The forecast was off by billions. Yeah, I know. It's not good. PJ says, I'm sure Nikon is going to with a hybrid mirrorless digital SR with a D6 because there was no D5S and it's going to have IBIS, so it makes sense. Yeah, I hope that camera does well. I really hope they bring out a good version of the D6, that's for sure. If they don't, they're in trouble. Where else were we? Oh, like I said, David, I love that 135 so much, changed the game. Yeah, it did. And I agree with you. It's a beautiful lens, and I can't wait to start using it in real shoots, like I'm going to do at the end of today. Thanks for the donation too, mate. Where are we up to? Walkman. Also said, I agree, David, I have the Z6 and the autofocus isn't as good as my Sony. No, they hunt a little bit. The problem with the way it works, the autofocus in that, is that it is doing like that hunt sort of past and then coming back in a little bit. So it doesn't focus anywhere near as good as what the Sony does at this stage. Whether they can fix that with firmware, remember there is a new firmware coming out with new IAF on the Nikon, so they are giving a decent firmware update, and it may also improve the video autofocus as well. The video that comes out of the Nikon is outstanding. It really is beautiful. It lacks a little bit in autofocus, but they've got the much higher bit depth and things like that, that if you record to a Ninja V, it's stunning. You can do 10-bit. It's saying Canon sells, PJ is saying Canon sells way more cameras overall. But I think that's starting to change, though. That's the problem. Also said the A7S III needs to come out already. Nikon is hiring the angry photographer as a consultant. I love it. Jim says, when Sony releases global shutter, it will be like an FA18 kicking on after. But I know, and this is why I said it worries me a little bit. And even though I'm a Sony user, it does worry me that if these cameras, and I think they're going to be, are going to blow everything out of the water, they're going to be in trouble. Langston says, does it make one wonder who they are listening to or what pressures lead them? I know Casey needs to do a boardroom meeting to discuss this, that's for sure. PJ says, although Nikon was late to mirrorless and made a horrible choice with their Z series and the one card slot, they have admitted that the Z6 and Z is not professional and they will come out with a pro body. The problem is, PJ, is that they're charging it like it's a professional camera. That's the problem. It's the same price or a bit dearer than the A7R3. And that's the issue. Gerald says, will you buy a Sigma Art 105 1.4 before waiting for Sony to release? No. Look, I won't be buying that anytime soon, Gerald. There's other things that I need before that. But that focal length certainly interests me. And it's something that I will keep in mind for one day. It's not something I'm going to buy in a hurry, though. Thanks for the donation. Casper said the grip is nice. PJ Smith said, yeah, the lenses are better with a vertical grip. I only have one pro glass and it's always use a vertical grip. Michael says, David, as your manager, I must advise you to save some Sony talk for after when we sign our Sony contracts. I love it, Michael. You're a crack up. Gary says, just sold my Nikon D750 to buy the Sony a6-400 with the 18-105. No, that's a great combo. It is a really good combo. Gary, you're also, like I said, I would definitely recommend looking at the Sigma lenses, though. The Sigma are kicking butt if you're dealing with the APS-C lenses. That 16 that I use is outstanding. And the 56, I think it's 56 or 53, I can't remember, is also an incredible lens as well. So there are a couple of great lenses that you can use. If you also want a good zoom, full frame zoom that's not too expensive to use on it, the Tamron 28-75 also works very well on the A6-400, but it doesn't go wide enough. That's why you may need something like the 16. So yeah, and the 18-105 is a great lens. It's a great travel lens because it's got great reach, but it's only f4, so that's something you've got to consider. And great focusing. The a6-400 is wonderful for focusing. I mean, it is crazily good. I don't get much sensor dust at all because every time I start to change lenses, I use the blower, the rocket blower, and I blow the dust out, and it stays pretty good. Sony or third party need to release fast zoom lens for APS-C 2.8. Yeah, it's going to happen. Sammy said the Z6 is not as bad as you think, honestly. While I still prefer my A7R3 and the A9, it's not my first. Like I said, I don't think the Z6 is a bad camera at all. It's hurt by those two things, and that's the issue that they're dealing with. It's hurt by the one card slot and the no battery grip and the slightly inferior focus, but it's certainly a great made camera, a very well made camera. So I agree with you, Sam. Gerald says exactly, the 85GM will need to be updated with those linear motors to quicken the focus is a must. The lens has great IQ, but could use new focus, yeah, because it is a little bit slower in focusing. I've noticed that when I've tested that lens out. Hero said the a6-400 is awesome for the price. Chris said, is 10-bit video something Sony could release in firmware? No, it's not. I don't think so. If they probably could for the A9, probably could handle it, but it's not going to happen. It's something that will be brought out due to heat and things like that, I think the A7S will probably give you 10-bit internal. It wouldn't surprise me. The A7000 may give you 10-bit, but it will be external, I'd say. So that's another thing as well that you'd have to think about. But yeah, 10-bit, I don't think they could do as a firmware upgrade. It's going to have to be a new body. Will you buy the Sony 85 1.8 or the Samyang? If I was buying now, I would buy the Samyang 85 1.4. Definitely from what I've seen. That's at the moment. That's how I would purchase at the moment. I'd get the Samyang. Hero said, right now the 85 1.8 is $549 at Adorama. How much, let me know guys, how much is the Samyang 85 in the US? I'm just curious to know at the moment. Because Menard's saying the 85 1.8, Hero is saying the 85 1.8 is $549 at Adorama. So how much is the Samyang 85 1.4? PJ says, Chris, I don't think you will ever see a video frame rate increase or bit depth increase through firmware. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that either. Chris said, so David, will you become a Sony creative or a Sony artisan? If they invite me, I haven't been invited for that. Chris? Where are we? RL, he should be. Thank you so much, RL, for saying that. Can I talk about a bag I bought because it's awesome, heavy as hell, but it's just like a studio on wheels? Yeah, which bag was it, Langston? ALL gave me a $10 donation. Guys, if you like the channel, support the guy that makes the time to answer your question. Thank you very much for your time, David. Looking forward to more David and Aaron videos. Once again, GM85 1.8. Thank you so much for that, mate. Really appreciate it. Greg said, if you get an Arctic butterfly sensor brush, you can remove dust quickly, easy and safely. Yeah, I've never used those, Greg. David, did you talk about the Sony? Yes, I did at the beginning, so you'll be able to go back at the end of this and check that out. There'll be a timeline put in about when that. The Samyang $699, so it's pretty good, isn't it? If you think that the Samyang is $699 as compared to the 1.8 Sony, which is $549, I think I'd go for the Samyang. Definitely at that price range. Check out the reviews, guys, but the reviews out there look really good for that lens, and I think it's kicking goals. I think for the price that that lens is offering, the focus is meant to be really good. The depth of field, it looks amazing. The out of focus rendering in the background, the bokeh looks beautiful and really sharp. So a great lens. In fact, I'm thinking about buying it. The only option, where were we? I just got another donation too. Great content, agree. Oh, thank you so much, RL. Really appreciate that, mate. The only option that 10-bit could be firmware upgraded is if their new codec is amazingly efficient. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I really don't think it's going to happen. Any news on the Tamron? No, Tamron, I did talk to Tamron Australia. They still think they're going to get one around June. I haven't heard any more than that at this stage. I'm still hoping to get a version as soon as I can get one to review for you guys. It just depends. Sometimes Tamron Australia will get it early, sometimes they won't. So I'm waiting just like you guys. So, no, I'm still waiting. Man, I said, yeah, the Samyang in the US is $699. I think it was $990 Australian due to the exchange rate. We talk about Sony, Canon and Nikon, and we forget about Panasonic Lumix. They are great. Yeah, nothing wrong with Panasonic cameras at all. Thanks so much. All the best, Aaron was saying to Ale. Jim said, thanks for the great show as always. Langston said, that looks pretty cool. Greg Thomas, going to have to check that out. Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that too. Man, I'm sure I would never use a brush on my sensor, only a rocket blower or a sensor. That's what I've always used. Thanks so much for the donation, RL. Think Tank Production Manager is the bag. Let me just check it out. I'll have a look at it. Is it the 50 you've got? Oh, yeah, the 50. Rolling gear case. See, I use Think Tank. I swear by Think Tank. Oh, so it's the big one. Is it this one? Let me just come over here. So it's the long one, is it, Langston? So it's that one. Is that the one? Yeah, I have looked at something like that. They'd be great for light stands and stuff like that. Highly recommend Think Tank. I'm not sponsored by Think Tank at all, but I've got 4 of their bags, the rolling bags that I love and adore them, and they last forever. They're almost indestructible. All with wheels. I've got the Airport Express, a couple of those. I've also got, let me just go to Think Tank. I'll show you which ones I've got. Rolling cases. I'll show you which ones I've got. If I switch over here, I've got the Airport International. I've got 2 of those. I've got airports. No, there's another one where I've got where it's got the 4 wheels. Which one is it? That one. I've got the Airport Roller Derby. That's my favourite. It's a little bit smaller, but the rollers on it are stunning because you can just roll it around really, really easily because it's got 4 wheels instead of having the 2 wheels. Yeah, so I've got one of those. Oh, I've got 2 of those. No, I've got one of those. I've also got the Airport Security, that one, and I've got 2 of the Airport Internationals. And like I said, I've purchased all of those with my own money. Indestructible. Zips are indestructible. I've had that much gear thrown inside these. Adore them. I really wish Think Tank was sponsoring me. But I love those bags. They are outstanding. And that looks really good, Langston, that bag. Because the good thing is with that... and I have thought about getting that one, Langston, for more of my light stands and things like that I can take along to a shoot as well. It gives you that flexibility to have, all of those... where was it? Yeah, it gives you that ability to, like I said, if you're looking at this, that, you've got a lovely long bag that you can deal with, and it looks really nice. I have sort of thought about getting something like that for a period of time. See, it says it holds C stands, monoblocks, softboxes, modifiers, large light stands. It holds 3 to 4 flash heads. So it'd be fantastic to take out and use for that. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that with me. Last few questions before we finish, and I'll go and get a coffee. Where were we? Just down here. Hero says, I'm addicted to 1.4 now after using the Sigma 30 and the 105, so I'd go with the Samyang. Yep, I think that's the lens to get at the moment, Hero. I agree with you. Andre said, the focusing on the 85 Samyang in video is not great. Oh, okay. I could live with that, though. Look, I very rarely use video with my 85. And the thing for me is I've got so many lenses that I use. This is still my favourite Sony lens for video. So if I'm going to do video, I'm more than likely going to use this. I love the 55mm. That's why I have that ND on there. So I'm not stressed about the 85 not having good video autofocus because this is what I'm going to use. As long as it's great for stills, I'd be happy. Slower video autofocus doesn't faze me one little bit because I've got the 55. I've got the Batis if I need that, but I might sell, I'm not sure. I've got the 135, but even that's pretty big if you're dealing with video. Maynard said, I'm looking for reviews of the Samyang 85 1.4 using APS-C cameras. Yeah, there probably isn't any yet out there. It'd be good though because it gives you the 135mm focal length. The S1 has amazing stills and video quality. Yes, it does. Mike said, I pre-ordered Sony Bluetooth remote commander. It works on the A7R3, but not the A9. Oh, I wonder why. Jim says, a T-shirt with a black hole would be a hit at WPPI. The black hole, I love it. Yeah, Langston said, yes, that's the one. I currently have the Sony 85 1.8 and the Samyang 85 1.4 in my Adorama cart. Can't decide which one to get. I'd get the Samyang, but that's me. But you make the decision. Langston says, fits my entire video kit, including light stands. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't mind one, Langston, for travelling with lighting gear. It would be fantastic. Michael says, laugh out loud, yeah, Jim Penn, I'm having heavily invested into Sony now. What else? Tim said, the remote should work with a follow-up firmware update. Oh, okay. Greg said, Arca butterfly sensor brush is more delicate than a wet swab. What else have we got? Ken has made 6 videos in the duration of this video. I know, I always go on long times. There's nothing I can do about it, though, because, like I said, it's just like mates. I love gear, and I love talking about rumours and stuff, and this is like me sitting around a table chatting with mates, and that's why I love it so much. Casper said, Think Tank is the best bags I've ever owned. I agree with you, Casper. They are amazing. Jim is sleeping with one eye open when he sleeps with his wife. I love it. That's it. All right, guys. that we've finished for the day. Stay tuned. Let me know if anything you'd like me to review with the Sigma lens in the coming days. Apart from that, I'll see you all soon for the next review. I have got my final thoughts on the Sigma 105 lens review coming out soon, so stay tuned on that. And obviously I'm going to have some reviews. I will be reviewing this on its own, the Sony 135, and also the Sigma 135 as well, and I'll review them compared to each other too, so stay tuned for that as well. So I've got stacks coming up in the coming days. If you haven't subscribed, obviously please subscribe. Thank you so much for everyone that gave the donation and also for the thumbs up. I've got 132. I really love you guys. And like I said, if you can, book in for WPPI, Planet Hollywood. That's where we'll be staying. We can all get together and have drinks and party on, basically. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you all for the next video. Have a great day and great weekend, and I'll see you all soon, everyone. Bye for now.